I swear I didn't notice it at first. You think you know a person when you've been married for 8 years, right? You think you've got her smiles memorized, her sighs cataloged, the way she leans her head on your shoulder when she's tired. But looking back, the first fracture was there months before I realized it. Like a hairline crack in a wine glass you only spot when the light hits it just right. Her name's Jessica. My wife back then. Blonde, corporate sharp. The type who could walk into a room full of suits and make them all shut up without raising her voice. People used to say she had it all together. I used to believe that. The night that broke it open started like a scene from a damn soap opera. I was sitting in my truck outside Eli's bar and grill, killing time before meeting a buddy. Rain on the windshield, wipers clicking. That's when I saw her, my wife, sliding into the passenger seat of a black Mercedes parked a few spots ahead. Not her car. Not even close. The driver was Greg Mason. Yeah, that Greg Mason. Wealthy finance guy, smug like he was born with a trust fund in his hand. I'd met him once at a charity dinner. He'd laughed at my job. Middle school dropout. He'd called me like it was some kind of disease. I wasn't proud of quitting school, but I'd built a trucking business from the ground up, and I was doing fine. More than fine, actually. But that look he gave me, like I was barely worth the air I breathed. I sat there in the shadows, headlights off, watching. They didn't kiss, not yet. But she laughed, touched his arm, and gave him that smile. My smile. The one she'd once saved for me. He leaned in, whispered something, and she nodded. Then they drove off together into the wet night. Something twisted inside me. Not anger. Not yet. Just a cold, slow burn that started in my gut and crawled up to my chest. I told myself maybe it was business. Maybe I was being paranoid. But that little voice, the one you never want to hear, was already whispering. You know what this is, man. Don't lie to yourself. I didn't follow them. Not that night. I went home, sat in my truck in the driveway, and stared at the house we'd built together. The porch light was on, just like always, as if nothing had changed. But something had. I could feel it in my bones. Inside, I saw her phone on the kitchen counter, charging. Temptation clawed at me. I'd never checked her phone before, hell, I'd never wanted to. But my hands weren't listening to my brain. I picked it up, tapped the screen, and the first thing that popped up was a message preview. Had a great time today. Same place next week. It wasn't signed, but the number wasn't in her contacts. My throat tightened. The cold burn flared hotter. That night I didn't sleep. I lay beside her, staring at the ceiling while she breathed evenly. Her arm draped over me like nothing was wrong. Every so often, she'd shift and murmur something in her sleep, and I'd think about that smile in the Mercedes. About the text. Morning came and I decided I needed more than suspicion. I needed proof. And once I had it, there'd be no going back. If you want the end of the story first, here's the headline I scribbled on a napkin months later so I wouldn't forget the taste of it. My ex-wife became a bank CEO, and her new husband looked down on me as a middle school dropout. He said, "Why don't you cut ties with my wife?" I decided to close my $700 million account. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Back then, in the thick heat of discovery, I was just Ryan. Truck king with grease under the nails and a heart that still thought love meant telling the truth. The morning after Eli's bar and grill, Jessica floated into the kitchen in a slate blazer and lipstick sharp enough to sign contracts. Pilates, then a board prep, she sang, grabbing her green smoothie. She kissed my cheek like a politician, already scrolling. Her phone buzzed. Her eyes flicked too fast. Then she turned the screen face down. Muscle memory told me to let it go. Something new in me said, no more autopilot. I called my buddy Tyler. Meet me at Pine and 4th in 20. Bring the camera, I said. Tyler's a good guy. A laugh too loud, a loyalty too rare. He showed up with coffee and a lens the size of a soup can. You sure about this? He asked. No, I said. But I'm done being sure of the wrong things. We followed Jessica's Tesla from a safe distance. She didn't veer toward Align Pilates. She slid instead into the loop by the Lafayette Hotel. Valet only, expensive, the place where executives hold quiet meetings and people have loud regrets later. I felt something in me split, clean as a paper cut. She swept inside, phone pressed to her ear, her heels clicking messages only I could read. Proof, I told Tyler. I need proof that doesn't shake in my hands when I hold it. We waited. 15 minutes later, the black Mercedes I'd seen last night glided to the curb. Greg Mason stepped out in a navy suit like a confession. He checked his reflection in the tinted window, smiled at himself, and strode in. Here's the first sudden thing. A fire alarm blared. Everyone poured out. Guests, staff, whispers. In the silver river of evacuees, Jessica reappeared with Greg at her shoulder. Their careful distance, the kind people don't bother to keep when they're only colleagues. She laughed, too bright. He adjusted the collar of her blazer like he owned the right. Click. Tyler's shutter chirped once, twice, again. The pictures were crisp, painfully crisp. I wasn't ready for how relieved and wrecked I'd feel seeing the truth framed in pixels. The second sudden thing. Megan, my little sister, called. I just saw Jess at Lafayette on Ava's story, she said, breathless. Isn't she supposed to be in Pilates? Ava works front desk. She says Jess checked in under Jay Carter with a +1 for a private lounge. That normal? Nothing's normal, I said, and hung up before my voice broke. Jessica spotted me across the sidewalk like I'd materialized from rain. For half a heartbeat, her face went naked, shock, then calculation. She touched Greg's wrist, a tiny stop sign, and breezed toward me with the speed of someone who trusts her lies. Ryan, what are you doing here? She smiled, softening her voice for the crowd. For the story she'd flip like a card. This is a work thing. The board needs me ready. Greg's consulting. Greg approached slow, cool, a shark in loafers. Mr. Carter. He said my name like a joke. You okay? You look out of your depth. Tyler glared. I tucked my hands in my jacket pockets to keep from doing something I'd regret. Pilates turned into a lobby lesson? I asked Jessica. You left wearing gym clothes. Now you're in a blazer with him. She gave a delicate laugh. Oh my God. Ryan, don't be dramatic. I keep a spare at the office. The alarm went off and everyone had to evacuate. Are you seriously making this weird? Greg needed to run through talking points with me. The banks got heat on our lending exposure. We're prepping. Third sudden thing. A valet hustled over with a long receipt and a pen. Ms. Carter, the private lounge fee. It's, here. He blinked when he saw me, then tried to vanish into his own uniform. Too late. My eyes fell on the paper. Room service. Champagne, chocolate-covered strawberries. Time. 10:42 a.m. 2 flutes sketched on the line like a cartoon heartbreak. Jessica's smile thinned. That's for the board, she said, while Greg's mouth tilted, the tiniest smirk. For the board, I repeated, and Tyler's camera clicked once more. The receipt caught like a butterfly in amber. Jessica's eyes hardened. Stop this, she hissed under her breath, teeth barely moving. You follow me now? You bring a friend with a camera like some tabloid creep? You're embarrassing yourself. Greg folded his arms. Look, man, not to pile on, but optics matter. A guy with your background causing a scene? Not helpful for her. My background. My voice came out quiet, level in a way that scared even me. The old shame rose up. Dropout, GD later, the steel-toe years. But another voice pressed down harder. You built something. Don't you forget who you are. Ryan, Jessica said, faux soothing. Go home. We'll talk tonight. I don't have time for your insecurity spiral. You're reading into things that aren't there. Something final clicked into place, like a safe door turning. Okay, I said. We'll talk tonight. But don't be late. You're always late when you're lying. A crowd had formed, hungry for drama. Greg checked his watch. We're done here, he announced like he'd closed a deal. He angled his body between us, shepherding her back inside as if I were a lost tourist in my own life. Tyler touched my shoulder. You want me to keep tailing them? No, I said. I've got what I need. I did. And the strangest thing, the fourth sudden thing, was the calm. It settled over me like fresh snow, muffling the city, clarifying the lines. Pain would come, rage would come, but for a minute there was just the truth, finally standing still long enough for me to look it in the eyes. That night would give me the words that ended a marriage and lit a fuse on a decision nobody saw coming. Not Jessica, not Greg, not the board that would soon crown her. But first came the confrontation. And I was done letting her script it. I waited until night because I wanted her to come home to me, not the version of me she thought she could steer with her corporate tone and boardroom logic. The house was too quiet, no TV hum, no music. I sat at the dining table with the receipt from Lafayette Hotel in front of me like Exhibit A. Tyler's photos were on my laptop screen, paused mid-frame, Jessica's smile carved in a moment I couldn't unsee. She walked in at 9:43 p.m. late, of course. Her heels clicked over the hardwood like a countdown. "Ryan, I'm exhausted," she said, dumping her purse on the counter. "Can we not?" Then she saw the laptop, saw the pictures. Her face froze. Then, like an actress hitting her cue, she put on a puzzled frown. "What is this?" "You tell me," I said. My voice was calm in the way that makes people nervous. "Why is my wife checking into a hotel under a fake name with Greg Mason? Why is there champagne and strawberries on a receipt at 10:42 a.m.? And why are you smiling at him like that?" She rolled her eyes. Rolled them like I was asking why the sky was blue. "God, Ryan, you are such a conspiracy theorist sometimes. Do you have any idea how crazy this looks? You're reading things into a work meeting. Greg's helping me prepare for the board's questions. He's a senior consultant. We didn't want it public because... I leaned forward. She hesitated, then shrugged with a smirk. "Because men like you take one look and decide a woman can't be successful without sleeping her way there." There it was, the pivot. Turn the gun on me. Make me the villain for noticing the smoke. I pushed the receipt toward her. "Men like me can read. And last I checked, champagne and strawberries aren't standard in crisis lending exposure meetings." Jessica crossed her arms, tilting her head like a teacher dealing with a slow student. "You're insecure. That's the whole problem. You can't stand that I'm moving up in the world while you're comfortable running trucks. You've built a business, sure, but you still get grease on your hands. Greg's in a different league. He understands the pressure I'm under." "Yeah, I've seen the league," I said. "I saw it in his car last night, saw it on the sidewalk this morning, and I saw it in your face when you realized I was there." Her lips pressed tight, the way they always did when she was caught but still hunting for the next lie. "You're unbelievable," she said finally. "You followed me. You brought Tyler to stalk me with a camera. That's controlling, Ryan. That's ugly. That's proof," I said. "And don't drag Tyler into this. He just held up a mirror. You don't like what's in it." She laughed, short and sharp. "What's your plan here? Divorce? Ruin me in front of the board? You think you can embarrass me into staying home, playing doting wife to a man who doesn't even own a tie that isn't from a discount rack?" That one hit. Not because of the tie comment, hell, I've never cared about labels, but because of the contempt dripping from every syllable. Like she'd been holding it in for years and finally let it out. "My plan," I said slowly, "is to get to the truth, and you're making that real easy." Jessica threw her hands up. "Fine. You want the truth? Greg makes me feel like I'm part of something important. He listens. He doesn't talk about truck routes or oil prices at dinner. He talks about growth, expansion, future. He sees me as more than just your wife." "And how does he see you in a hotel room at 10:42 in the morning?" I asked. Her eyes flashed. "Grow up, Ryan. People like Greg, people like me don't limit ourselves to your small-town ideas about marriage. We're adults. We make connections that help us win." I just stared at her. "So that's what this is? Winning?" She smirked. "It's survival." That was the moment I knew she was gone. Not physically, she was standing right there, but whatever woman I married, the one who used to curl up next to me in the cab of my first truck on overnight runs, was long dead. All that was left was someone who'd trade loyalty for leverage without blinking. I stood, closing the laptop. "You've made your choice. I'll make mine." She raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" "You'll see," I said and walked past her. She called something after me, but I didn't catch it. Or maybe I didn't want to. In the bedroom, I packed a small bag. Not because I was leaving forever, but because I didn't trust myself to sleep under the same roof without saying something that would scorch the earth faster than I was ready for. By the time I pulled out of the driveway, I'd already made two decisions. I was done chasing her for the truth, and I was going to hit her where it hurt most. Not with fists, not with rumors, but with something she valued even more than her reputation. And she'd never see it coming. I slept at my buddy Tyler's place that night, if you can call it sleeping. I lay on his couch, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slow circles like it was mocking me. Tyler didn't ask questions. He tossed me a blanket, set a beer on the coffee table, and let me stew in my own head. That's a rare kind of friendship, the kind where silence is heavier than words, but you know the other guy's got your back. The first wave that hit me wasn't rage. It was grief, not the loud, screaming kind. This was quieter, like standing in the wreckage of a house after the fire's gone out, smelling the smoke in your clothes, realizing there's no fixing what's left. Every memory of Jessica felt corrupted now, like someone had scribbled over my wedding album with a black marker. I thought of our road trips in my old Freightliner, the way she used to pack peanut butter sandwiches for the long hauls. I thought of her sitting cross-legged on the couch, hair up, no makeup, laughing at some dumb movie we'd seen 100 times. All of it gone, replaced by her smirk in that hotel lobby, her voice dripping with condescension. By sunrise, grief had shifted into anger, sharp and clean. I wasn't pacing or throwing things. I was calculating. Because here's the truth. Jessica had underestimated me. She saw me as some small-town truck guy with calloused hands and a GED. Someone who'd take a hit, sulk, and eventually let her walk back in with a smile and a story. What she didn't realize was that my business wasn't just trucks. Over the years, I'd diversified investments, real estate, even a few stakes in tech startups. And then there was my biggest play. A deposit account at the very bank where Jessica was climbing the ladder. An account worth more than most small towns. $700 million. It wasn't inherited money. Every cent came from work, mine, my crew's, my decisions. I kept it quiet, low profile. Even Tyler didn't know the number. Jessica knew it existed, but she never understood the scale. And she never once thought I'd weaponize it. That morning, I drove to my office. My assistant, Emily, gave me a concerned look. Rough night. Just need to make a transfer, I said. My voice was even. Too even. While I waited for the wire room to process my request, I pictured Jessica's day. Striding into the bank's glass tower, greeting her staff, preparing for another meeting with Greg Mason, her consultant. She'd be riding the high of thinking she'd cornered me emotionally. She had no idea the ground was already shifting under her heels. I didn't pull the trigger yet. No, I wanted to see the betrayal from her side before I acted. That meant walking into the bank like any other client, shaking hands, smiling, and watching the flicker in her eyes when she realized I wasn't playing the part she'd written for me. But even with revenge brewing, the emotional toll was real. I'd built my life around Jessica. Not because I needed her to survive, but because I chose her. I believed in her, invested in her future as much as mine. And she'd cashed that in for champagne at 10:42 a.m. with a man who saw me as dirt under his imported shoes. I tried to figure out when she'd turned. Was it the first time she met Greg? Or had she been carrying this arrogance for years, waiting for a chance to trade up in her mind? The worst part wasn't that she'd betrayed me. It was realizing she'd probably planned it, mapped it out like a corporate merger. By late afternoon, I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't even mad. I was cold. Cold is better. Cold gets things done. That night, I sent Jessica a short text. Dinner tomorrow. My treat. No emojis, no questions. Just enough to make her curious. She replied, sure. 7? Perfect. This wasn't about talking it out anymore. This was about control, and I was taking it back. Tyler asked if I was sure about what I was planning. Once you move that account, she's toast. No coming back from that. I looked at him. There's no coming back anyway. This just makes sure she knows it. The truth is, I didn't just want her gone. I wanted her to feel it. I wanted Greg to feel it. I wanted the entire damn board of her precious bank to feel it, like the floor had been ripped out from under them. And when I walked out of that dinner tomorrow, I was going to leave her with something she couldn't spin, couldn't sweet talk away, couldn't hide from in a boardroom. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't shouting. It's a quiet pen stroke that changes everything. I booked the reservation at Le Ver Noir, the kind of restaurant where you can smell the money before you taste the food. Jessica loved the place. Leather booths, crystal glasses, waiters who made you feel like you owed them rent for sitting down. It was perfect for what I had in mind. I showed up early, not because I was eager to see her, but because I wanted control of the stage. I asked the maitre d' for a specific table, center of the floor, right under the chandelier. No dark corners, no private booths. I wanted an audience. Jessica arrived at 7:06 p.m., right on schedule for her brand of casually late. She was dressed like she was about to close a billion-dollar deal. Sleek black dress, diamond earrings I'd bought her for our 5th anniversary. She slid into her chair, smiled just enough to look polite. "Ryan," she said, "you look put together." Her eyes scanned me, probably noting the tailored suit. Not one of my old discount rack ties. "You too," I said. "Busy day at the bank?" She gave a soft laugh. "Always. We're moving into aggressive growth." "That's why?" She stopped, tilting her head like she'd remembered she didn't actually want to tell me anything. "Anyway, what's this about?" The waiter poured us wine. I let the silence stretch. She hated silence, always had. Finally, I said, "I've been thinking about our situation, and I've decided you're right." Her brows lifted. "Right about what?" "About moving up. About playing in the big leagues." I took a slow sip of wine. "That's why I'm moving my account." Her smile widened, assuming victory. "I'm glad to hear that. If you're moving it into the bank, I can personally." "No." I cut in, calm but sharp. "I'm moving it out of the bank." The smile faltered. "What do you mean, out?" "I mean I'm closing my account at your bank. All of it." Her laugh came too quick, too forced. "Ryan, you're being petty. I know you've got some money parked there, but you'll be back once you cool off." I reached into my jacket and slid a folder across the table. She hesitated before opening it. Inside was a single sheet, a wire transfer authorization. The amount, $700 million. She froze. I watched her pupils shrink. This isn't possible." "Oh, it's possible," I said. "You've been too busy with Greg to notice what I've been building all these years. That's not some money, Jessica. That's the biggest private deposit your bank holds. Or rather, held. By the time dessert comes, it'll be gone." Her fingers tightened on the paper. "You're bluffing." The maitre d' approached then, holding a phone. "Mr. Carter? The bank's president is on the line for you. He says it's urgent." I took the phone, keeping my eyes on her. "Yes, Richard, I'm sure. No, there's no negotiation. Wire it to First Continental. Today." "Thank you." I handed the phone back. Jessica's face drained of color. "Do you have any idea what you've just done? This will kill our quarterly numbers." "The board will." "That's the point," I said. "You told me Greg makes you feel part of something important. Now you can be part of explaining to the board why their star CEO in waiting just let $700 million walk out the door." As if summoned, Greg appeared. He strolled over in his smug navy suit, looking like he'd just stepped off a yacht. "Jessica," he said smoothly, "everything okay?" Her eyes darted between us. "Greg, this is—" "I know who he is," Greg interrupted. He turned to me. "Mr. Carter, maybe you should consider." "No," I said, standing. "I don't take advice from men who measure their worth in other people's wives." The table next to us went silent. Conversations around the room slowed. This was exactly what I wanted, public, undeniable. Greg's jaw tightened. "That's a hell of an accusation." "It's not an accusation," I said. "It's the truth. And it's the reason your little side project here just cost her career its biggest win." Jessica shot me a glare that could cut glass. "You've ruined everything." "No," I said. leaning down so only she could hear. "You ruined it." I just collected the receipts. I left the folder on the table, turned, and walked out under the chandelier's light. Behind me, I could hear Greg's low voice, Jessica's sharper one, and the whispers of strangers filing the scene away for later gossip. Outside, the night air was cool. I didn't feel triumphant. Not yet, but I felt lighter. The money was gone from her bank. And tomorrow morning, the fallout would begin. By 9 a.m. the next morning. My phone was lighting up like a slot machine. Calls from numbers I didn't recognize, emails with subject lines in all caps, and even a few messages from board members I'd met once at Jessica's company gala. I ignored every one of them. I didn't need to hear their panic. I already knew exactly what was happening inside that glass tower. A $700 million hole isn't something you can patch with a press release. It's a headline, a shareholder lawsuit, and a chain reaction that makes stock tickers twitch like they've been electrocuted. Tyler texted me, "Turn on channel 7. You'll like it." I grabbed the remote and flipped it on. There she was, Jessica, in a navy blazer that looked 2 sizes heavier under the studio lights. The cheerin' read, "Bank faces sudden capital flight." The anchor's tone was the perfect mix of faux sympathy and hidden glee. "Sources close to the matter," she said, confirmed that a single private account, reportedly the largest in the bank's history, was withdrawn in full yesterday evening. While the bank's leadership insists operations remain stable, insiders describe the mood as urgent and strained. They cut to a clip of Jessica at the podium trying to look unshaken. Her voice was smooth, but her eyes betrayed her. I'd seen those eyes in the rearview mirror of my truck once, back when a tire blew on an icy overpass. Focused, calculating, but with a tremor she couldn't hide. "This was an unfortunate, isolated incident," she said. "Our relationships with our clients remain strong, and our strategic direction is unchanged." Unchanged. Yeah, right. Behind her, Greg sat with the rest of the executives, jaw tight, pretending to look bored. He knew the cameras were on him, but his left hand kept squeezing the armrest like he was trying to crush it. The anchor came back on. "Industry analysts are calling the move a significant setback for the bank, especially given recent reports of internal restructuring." I muted the TV. I didn't need to hear the analysts. I'd already scripted this outcome in my head. Around 10:30, I parked my truck across the street from the bank. Not because I needed to go inside, no, I wanted to watch the fallout in real time. Through the tall glass doors, I could see employees rushing between floors, carrying stacks of paper like the building was on fire. Then, in the middle of the lobby, Jessica appeared. She was on her phone, talking fast, heels clapping the marble. Greg was a few steps behind, clearly trying to keep up. They didn't look like a power couple anymore. They looked like 2 people running from the same collapsing building. At one point, she stopped to speak with a gray-haired man I recognized. Richard, the bank president. His face was red, his gestures sharp. Jessica kept nodding, eyes darting toward Greg. When Richard noticed Greg lingering, he waved him away like an annoying intern. That was interesting. By noon, the first op-ed hit the newsfeed. "Leadership missteps cost bank key client." The article didn't name me, but it didn't have to. Anyone in the industry would know who pulled that account. The writer speculated about internal politics, hinted at executive distractions, and called the loss a failure in relationship management. That last phrase? That was a dart aimed right at Jessica. Tyler called. "Dude, she's trending on Twitter. Some reporter dug up a blurry photo of you walking out of Louvre Noir last night. The caption says, 'Mystery Man sinks bank.'" I laughed. "Mystery Man, huh? I'll take it." By mid-afternoon, I saw Greg leave the building alone. He didn't head for the Mercedes. He hailed a cab, eyes down, coat collar up. That told me more than any headline. Greg was cutting bait. And Jessica? She'd just lost her consultant, along with the biggest account her bank had ever held. The best part? I hadn't raised my voice, thrown a punch, or sent an email. Just one signature, one transfer, and the entire facade cracked. Around 4 p.m., Jessica finally texted me. "We need to talk. Face to face." Tonight, I didn't reply. Let her stew. Let her wonder whether I'd show. Whether I'd even care enough to listen. When the sun dipped low, I drove past the bank one last time. The lobby was quieter now, but the tension was still visible. People walking fast, talking low, avoiding each other's eyes. I imagined the board meeting that was coming, the polite knives they'd use to carve her out of the succession plan. This wasn't just revenge anymore. It was a lesson she'd never forget. You can't look down on someone without checking what they're standing on. And I just kicked hers out from under her. Jessica picked the place, her penthouse office at the top of the bank's tower. That alone told me she still thought she had some kind of power left. She probably pictured me walking in there humbled, maybe ready to make amends, or at least hear her version of the truth. I didn't go alone. Tyler came with me not because I needed backup, but because I wanted a witness. Someone to remember every detail in case she tried to rewrite the scene later. We walked past the receptionist, who barely looked up. The elevator ride was silent except for the faint hum of cables. I could almost hear Jessica rehearsing her lines in her head. Her office door was open. She was standing behind her desk, arms folded, wearing a gray suit that made her look smaller than usual. Not physically, just diminished. Her heels were off to the side, like she'd been pacing. "Ryan," she said, forcing a smile. "Thanks for coming." I nodded to Tyler, who took a seat in the corner, flipping open his phone camera. Jessica's eyes flicked to it, then back to me. "Really? You brought him?" "Really?" I said. "No misunderstandings today." She sighed and motioned for me to sit. I stayed standing. "Look," she began. "I know you're angry." "I'm not angry," I cut in. "Anger was last week. Now I'm just finished." Her jaw tightened. "You think pulling your account hurt me?" "Didn't. It hurt the bank, sure, but I'll recover. People like me always recover." I leaned forward, planting my hands on her desk. "No, Jess, people like you think they recover. But your board isn't stupid. They've already been whispering about you and Greg. Now they're seeing your judgment cost them more than any bad loan ever could. They won't forget it, and neither will the press." She glanced toward the window, probably picturing the headlines. "Greg has nothing to do with this," she said weakly. "Funny," I said. "He seemed pretty involved in the Lafayette Hotel's champagne order. That got a flash of real anger. You followed me, Ryan. That's pathetic." I straightened. "What's pathetic is cheating on your husband, lying about it, and thinking you can still talk down to him while your whole career burns." She took a step around the desk, lowering her voice. "Why are you doing this? You could have just divorced me quietly, kept your money, gone on with your life. But you had to make a spectacle." "You made the spectacle," I said. "I just made sure there was a front-row audience." Jessica's mask cracked then. Her mouth tightened. Her eyes went cold. "You think you've won something here? Fine. You've taken this round. But when the dust settles, I'll still be moving forward, and you'll still be that dropout in a suit pretending you belong in rooms like this." I smiled. Not wide, not triumphant, just enough to let her know she'd walked into my final punch. "Rooms like this? Jess, I own 3 of the buildings your bank rents space in. One of them's this one." Her face went pale. Tyler looked up from his phone, eyes wide. "That's right," I said. "So while you're explaining to your board why you lost their biggest account, they'll also be signing next year's lease agreement with me." Jessica opened her mouth, but no words came out. Just a faint sound, halfway between disbelief and fury. I stepped back toward the door. "We're done here. You can keep the earrings. You can keep Greg. But you'll never keep the ground you just lost." Tyler stood and followed me out. In the hallway, I heard her call after me. Something sharp, bitter, but the words didn't stick. They couldn't. In the elevator, Tyler whistled. "Owning the building? You waited until now to drop that." "Timing's everything," I said. By the time we reached the lobby, I felt lighter than I had in months. The marriage was dead, the truth was public, and the last tie between us had been cut. Not with an argument, but with a fact she couldn't fight. I didn't need her respect anymore. I had something better, the knowledge that she'd never look at her own office the same way again. Every time she walked in, she'd remember this moment. The day she found out she wasn't the one holding the strings. 2 weeks later, the papers made it official. Jessica was stepping down from her role at the bank. That's corporate speak for being shown the door before security walks you out. The press release thanked her for her dedicated service and wished her well in her future endeavors. I read it twice just to enjoy the space between the lines. Greg, he vanished. Rumor had it he moved on to another consulting gig in another city. Men like him always float to the next opportunity like oil on water. He didn't even stick around to help her clean up the mess. As for me, I didn't feel the rush people expect when you talk about revenge. It wasn't fireworks or champagne. It was quieter, heavier, like setting down a weight you've been carrying so long you forgot how much it hurt. The divorce papers were simple. No screaming matches, no courtroom drama. I didn't fight her on the house, the car, any of it. Let her keep the trinkets. I kept the freedom. And the $700 million was already parked somewhere her eyes would never see. In the evenings, I started driving again, not for work, just for me. The open road has a way of clearing the mind. Miles of asphalt, no boardrooms, no suits, no lies. I'd roll the windows down, let the wind in, and remember that I was still the same guy who'd built everything from nothing. She hadn't taken that. She couldn't. The emotional bruises took longer. Trust doesn't grow back overnight. I caught myself double-checking people's words, reading into pauses, looking for cracks. It's like learning to walk again after you've been hit. You're slower, more deliberate. But you also learn to see the hit coming next time. Friends asked me if I regretted anything. The answer surprised them. No, not even the marriage. See, people think betrayal erases the good years, but it doesn't. I had real moments with Jessica once. We laughed, we worked, we dreamed. Those memories are still mine, even if she changed. But I don't miss her. Not the woman she became. I don't miss the way she could make a compliment sound like a test or turn a simple question into a trap. I don't miss the constant sense that I had to prove my worth to someone who'd already decided I wasn't enough. What I learned is simple. Pay attention to the shifts. People don't wake up one morning and decide to burn you. It starts small, canceled plans, eyes that slide away when you talk, laughter that doesn't reach them anymore. The light changes before the glass shatters. And when you see that change, don't pretend it's not there. If you're ever in my shoes, here's my advice. Don't try to win them back. That's not love talking. That's your ego wanting to fix what they broke. Instead, take a step back and look at what's really left between you. If it's ashes, stop blowing on them. Walk away. And if you can, walk away on your own terms. For me, that meant making sure she understood exactly who she'd underestimated. Not to hurt her for sport, but to remind myself I wasn't powerless. Too many people stay in bad situations because they forget they have the ability to end them. Life after her? It's not a movie ending. There's no perfect new partner waiting in the wings. No sudden revelation that makes it all worth it. It's quieter than that. Some mornings I make coffee and it actually tastes better because there's no tension at the table. Some nights I sleep all the way through without waking to wonder where she is. Peace is the real win. One evening, I drove past the bank tower. The lights were on in her old office. Someone else was standing there now, looking out at the city. I wondered if they knew the full story, if they'd heard about the account that walked out the door and never came back. Probably not. Banks bury their messes deep. I smiled anyway, not because I ruined her, but because I refused to let her ruin me. As I pulled away, I realized something. She'll spend the rest of her career trying to climb back to where she was the day before I made that transfer. And she'll never quite get there. That's her burden now, not mine. And me? I've got the open road, my business, my money, and my name intact. That's enough. More than enough. The last thing I'll say is this. If you ever find yourself standing in the wreckage someone else made, don't waste your breath shouting at the smoke. Just turn around, find solid ground, and start building again. The best revenge isn't making them lose. It's making sure you win without them. That's how you close the account.